Wow.
All right. Wow.
Yeah,
Look
wow.
at this spread we got
Yes,
here.
look at this.
This is amazing.
So,
I wish I
okay,
could hear everybody better. It's really loud in here. It's the only
okay.
it's the only television in town at a restaurant that's got the football game on. No one can watch it except for this place. Thanks to our good friends at Disney.
Okay. All right. Here.
So what is this podcast? Are we raking Royce over the phone? Is that it?
Yes, we are. Now,
Cool.
so yeah, we do Corn on the Macabre. It's a podcast where we talk about horror movies.
Corn on the Macabre.
Yeah, imagine that. And since Friday the 13th is tonight,
Yes.
so
Very excited. We're gonna try to do some franchise episodes for the Halloween season.
Well, you're talking,
but since Friday the
you
13th
got Royce there. He's
this week.
one of the world's foremost authorities on Friday the 13th.
I know.
That's right.
Yeah, and that's why we had him on, because Royce and I we go way back. We go to what's the first time? When is the first time we worked together? That would have been Blood Ties: The Legend of Hammerhead.
Yeah, back in the Cincinnati days. Yeah.
Yeah, back in what 2005.
I've known Royce since I was in high school.
Yeah, Harry's known me since he was in high school.
Right, since I was in high school.
Oh my gosh, I'm loving this. I'm loving everything about this. Oh, for the audience, we have Harry Manfredini on the phone.
I'm trying to get this picture
on the phone on the podcast. So
on the podcast.
Yeah, that's him right there. He is in a restaurant talking to us, which is like amazing. So
yes, he has blessed us with his presence.
Yes.
And
we're having so much fun.
For those who would be watching that or listening that may not know who Harry is, which is blasphemous that they wouldn't.
Yes.
But he is the man responsible for, of course, many scores, but mainly today why he's here is he is responsible for the Friday the 13th score and the infamous Jason theme that we all know and love. So we're extremely excited to have him. Very thankful to have Harry with us. So thank you for joining us. And we also have Royce Freeman with us, who is one of the most foremost #1 fans. He kind of was the Jason wiki before there was a wiki, I guess you could say. So he was the originator of the first Friday the 13th franchise fan website. So he is everything Friday the 13th.
Let me tell you a story, and Royce, maybe you remember this. It was at a convention in Florida, and it was you and me and what's his name? I'm sorry. Our best friends passed away.
Petch.
Right. And there was a girl who wrote a book. And there were the three of us there. There was a girl who wrote a book, was like everything you ever wanted to know, questions about Friday the 13th. So she came up to me, wanted me to write my name in the book. And I said, these two guys know everything there is about Friday the 13th. And I said, I'll tell you what, open the book to a random page, pick a number from 1 to 10, tell me what the question is, and watch this. So she opens the book up, page 176 or whatever, and then it was whatever that question was, and it was like, okay, in part 5, when so-and-so said this, what was so-and-so doing when the other person was, and then she gave the answer, and then they both go, oh, no, that's not what happened. And she said this, and then that happened. And she goes, oh, yeah, that's right. So turns out they had the book. I mean, it was amazing. Amazing. I don't even remember the film plot, and these guys knew every line of dialogue.
There's a plot in those movies?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sort of.
Yes. There'd be a plot. So
Plot was
There
make
be
it for
plot.
as little as possible and make the most money.
And put a
There you go.
kick-ass soundtrack on it.
Right.
That's right.
Wham. There you go.
that's right. That's right. Royce also co-wrote Psycho Killer with me.
Psycho
Oh yeah,
killer.
yeah. Randy's a filmmaker and a director, writer, and actor. And I've been
Yeah,
working with
I'm
him for
amazing.
about 20 years. Worked on different things together. Several of the feature movies I've done, he's actually done the posters for them and the box art for the DVDs and stuff.
Mhm.
Randy's
Wow.
a hell of an artist.
Yeah, we just wanted to talk little bit about Friday the 13th, the entire franchise. Hopefully,
We
we
should
have
ask Harry.
one of the Jasons on.
We should ask Harry some stuff that they haven't asked him a million times. I mean, if he has
Right.
to explain where the sound effect came from and the themes, it's like there's probably things we could ask him that other people have not, and that would be refreshing.
That would be very refreshing. We have 2 minutes,
Yeah.
and it's gonna
All
get
right.
All right.
so
On the spot, we
long
got to
and
ask him
it's
something
gonna
he's
get so
not been
long.
asked before.
Oh
Yeah.
no.
Here's a question that nobody's probably asked: how much alcohol or other substances went through the musicians' bodies during the recording sessions?
Uh, I'll take the recording sessions were funny with players. Uh, I did the strings separate from the brass, and I bought everybody lunch. The string players all come in, and they want tofu and beans and seeds and maybe a salad or something like that, and they're happy with lunch. The brass players come in, and they want roast beef and beer, just to like complete opposite, you know, manly food. So that was always fun. And I don't remember which Friday it was, but I took them to a diner, and so I've got the whole 12, 13 people all sitting down at a diner, and I'm paying for lunch, and we're all waiting for it, and the waitress quits in the middle of our order, and took
Oh no!
all 13 orders and threw them on the floor and walked out of the place. That was fun.
13.
There was 13 orders for
13
it.
orders.
13
Wow.
orders, of
13
course.
players in a basement in New Jersey.
13 players in a basement in New Jersey.
That's
So
crazy.
Oh my gosh.
yeah,
Oh my gosh.
yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's been 30 years, so I'm sure it's now become very funny for Harry. So back when I was in high school, um, I decided I wanted to do websites before it was cool to do so. So there wasn't all these DVD commentaries. There wasn't Crystal Lake
Right.
Memories, the book. There wasn't any of this stuff. And so I was on AOL Instant Messenger, and I was finding it's like, oh, let me look at Kane Hodder, let me look up Sean Cunningham, let me look up these people. And before Sean got into the circuit of doing conventions, where it became a thing, the idea of fans contacting celebrities was kind of more of a pain than it was a flattering thing. So
Mhm.
this goober little 16-year-old kid with all of this enthusiasm, but none of the tact or knowing the social graces, contacts Sean Cunningham and gets all excitable and stuff. And one way to throw me off the trail was to give me what I asked for. And one of the things was, hey, how can I interview you? And do you know any other Friday alumni that maybe I can get in touch with? So he passed me on to Sean, Victor, and Harry, and he gave me Harry's email address and home phone number, and he says, "Well, good luck to you." And so then I emailed Harry, and I guess probably within a day, didn't even wait for a response. So I call him up, but I call him up as if it's a follow up to the email, not a hello. I also emailed you. So I'm like, hi, my name is Royce Freeman. Da, 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 da. I contacted you about the interview, and he goes, well, let's get to that in a minute. First off, how did you get my home phone number? And I said, well, and I said, well, Sean Cunningham gave it to me, and he goes, no, really, how? And I said, no, it's Sean. I said, Sean gave it to me. He goes, okay, it's clear that you're not going to tell me how you got my number. Anyway, but then years later, he told me at that very horror convention, he told me that my name came up in passing with Sean, and Sean had a good laugh. Says, "You're still talking to that kid?"
Yeah, exactly,
Oh, that's great.
exactly. It's true. And he said to me, and he said, yeah, I gave him your phone number. I didn't think he'd call.
Yeah,
Anyway,
that's
that's
like
true.
the
That's an
first.
absolute true story. Hey, look, guys, I got to
That's
take off. I just wanted to jump
okay.
in and say hi. Good luck with the rest of the comedy.
Yes.
What is
Harry,
it
thank
again?
you so
Corn
much for joining us. We
children,
really appreciate it.
children
Love
of
you.
the corn. What's it called again?
Corn on the macabre.
Corn on a macabre. Yeah. All
Yep.
right.
Yep.
Anyway,
I mean,
all right. Anyway,
All right.
Everybody
thank you.
collect your nickels and let's pay
enjoy your
Harry.
evening.
Let's pay Harry like a jukebox. Harry, give us a little sound effect. Ah, that was
Yeah.
marvelous. Thank you, Harry.
Oh,
Take care, you guys. We'll see you.
thank you.
Thank you,
Happy
Harry.
Friday the
Take
13th.
care. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
See you, man.
All right.
That was awesome.
It's still us. So
Yeah, I've
yeah,
known him since 1996.
wow.
Wow.
Yeah, since we were
Wow.
both in high school. Yeah,
Try.
I got my copy of Crystal Lake Memories here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
signed by Harry, and I got
Yeah.
my music box set up here for
Awesome.
Harry's music for the series, and then
Awesome.
the Scream Factory box set here, Blu-rays.
You know, and
Yeah.
boots. Because yeah, it's a horror movie. And she was a trooper, you know.
I may have been in
So
one of those buildings. Ryan gave me the tour. He was like, "Do you want to see every place that our lovely superintendent owns?" You know, so we saw all those lovely buildings. He says, "We can write for this. Those are real holes in the walls. Those support beams are flimsy at best." You know.
mm, let's talk about Friday the 13th. Like all the shit that you
What
know,
was your
you know.
first movie? I didn't see them in order. Based on, I just saw them on TV. I think Part 4 was the first one I saw.
I saw the first one I saw was the first one, Friday the 13th. And then I think it was on HBO. They had Friday the 13th and then played Friday the 13th Part 2 like right after it.
Nice.
So I watched them in one, in one night, And
I think Part 2 is a better movie than Part 1. I mean,
yes, I agree.
it is the same movie, just with a with a sack over his head instead of Mrs. Voorhees. But
Yeah, and
Steve Miner's a better director.
yeah, I love the opening of it. It's like 20 minutes, 20-minute
20-minute
opening,
recap. Yeah.
Yeah, basically, and then the film's really short too.
Yeah, 88 minutes.
So yeah, it doesn't wear out its welcome at all. It's like perfect, and Jason looks great in it. So, and then
Who's your favorite Jason actor?
oh,
Like,
I knew you're gonna say this, and I have to say I love C.J. Graham, I love Kane Hodder. Okay, so it's like, man, which like sometimes you ask me what my favorite Friday the 13th movie is. It depends because I love 6 and 7. Okay, but I love 5 too, and I know a lot of people hate 5. There's a lot of hatred for 5, but I know you and I both love 5.
no, 5 is great. 8
Yeah,
is
we've talked about it.
8 isn't as good as 5. 5 is good because it's not trying to do anything that the other one movies did. That thing is sleazy. That thing is because the director Danny Simon did porn before. I mean, actually, a lot of filmmakers in the series did porn. Wes Craven and Sean Cunningham actually did porn stuff in the 70s. You know,
I
West
did
did
not
it
know that.
under a West did it under a pseudonym, Abe Snake. But
Uh-oh.
he did some vampire porn movie. I don't remember the name of it, but he worked on it. And Sean did Together and The Art of Marriage. Those two with Marilyn
Um,
Chambers. It's some porns.
um,
Yeah,
I
all
mean,
the team up
yeah.
movies. Yeah. In the Crystal Lake Memories documentary, they show you all these clips. I guess they found that old copies of movies that were released overseas, but there was a movie that Steve Miner and Sean Cunningham made before Friday 13th and after Last House on the Left called I think it was Case of the Smiling Stiffs or something like that, and it was about two detectives that were solving these murders because this vampire lady was killing all these guys, but leaving them with boners. And so like it was dirty. It was, but it was 70s
Oh
porn
my
with that.
God.
It was 70s porn with that funk music as the soundtrack.
But well, Craig,
Yeah.
what's and Royce, same question for you. Well, two questions. What's your favorite Friday the 13th film, and your favorite Jason? Jason
Um,
actor, Jason.
well, both of them have the same answer, and this is very divisive because I love the even number movies. I love 2, 4, 6, but then 7 also. Um, but my favorite movie is almost a non Friday the 13th movie because it's a
Oh my
Jason
God, I know
movie.
what you're gonna say.
Yep, yep. Jason Goes to Hell. Jason Goes to Hell
Yeah.
is is the first one I ever saw in the movie theater.
Okay.
I got to see
Okay.
it when I was
I'll give
13.
you a pass on that one
Yeah, I got to see that movie in the theater. So I mean, I didn't get to see all the exquisiteness of the gore and the tense scene until it was on home video.
Right.
But saying that I like Jason Goes to Hell is almost like I should that should be a free pass answer, and I should answer it again because saying your favorite Nightmare on Elm Street movie being Wes Craven's New Nightmare is also it's a Freddy
I
movie. It's not a Nightmare on Elm Street movie.
Yeah, and that's funny you would say that. That's my favorite Elm Street movie.
It's an amazing film, but
Yeah, it
it's not a
is.
If
nightmare movie. It's a
if
Freddy
if
movie.
if we were to
Yes.
put Freddy versus Jason in the mix of Friday the 13th or Jason films, would that play into anybody's answers at all?
Uh,
Just out of curiosity.
I mean, it's a fun movie.
No, it
You know,
is a fun movie.
I
It is
love
a
it
Yeah.
for
fun
what it
movie.
is.
I've read all the screenplays for all the versions they tried to make over the years because a lot of the actors sometimes would slip them under my door. Um, and there was one script that this guy that worked on, uh, I think he worked on one of the Star Trek TV shows in the '90s. But it was a script. It was this guy Peter Briggs. He wrote, and it was going to take place in hell, and it dealt with Alice from Part Five and Stephen Freeman and Jessica the baby, and it was trying to bring the franchises together by bringing Tommy Jarvis and all these characters back. But they
Right.
didn't. That didn't get made. But it's weird. Every time they tried to make Freddy versus Jason, up until Scream, Scream's the reason why we have the Freddy versus Jason we have because it became breaking the fourth wall. It became jokes and self-referential and
Right.
let's pack everybody in the Scooby van and let's go solve a case. And but all those scripts, one was I think David Scow had written and dealt with the Fred heads, and it was gonna be
David
dealing with
Scow,
like
really?
David Scow wrote a screenplay for it, and it was gonna have
Wow.
like Jason was brought back to life where they would sew him together with barbed wire and just make him look like this steampunk
That
kind of like
that makes
Frankenstein
total
monster.
sense to me. Yes, that makes total sense to me.
But they
David
decided
Scow.
that it was too ugly. Like if you watch If you watch Texas Chainsaw 3, that movie, the X-rated cut, is just disgusting. But it's supposed to be. But David Scow said that the studios, New Line and stuff, they were afraid of doing stuff that would piss off the foreign market. So something that was too ugly and too grotesque and too, they were like, oh, let's just play it safe. Let's do the pretty version of ugly.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
What's your favorite Friday the 13th movie?
That tough question, but I think at the end of the day, I would have to choose. I think 6 is my favorite Friday film. Just because I love the Jason actor, and I think 6 is like kind of where Jason really solidifies that he's like this supernatural zombie-esque type. I love the physicality and stature of Jason in that movie. I think it is not only is it my favorite, but I think it's one of the like better all around actual decent movies of the franchise.
So then, is C.J. Graham your favorite Jason actor?
It's hard to say because I absolutely love Kane Hodder, but in his tenure as Jason, like the Jason films that he's in don't stack up as well as to the other Jason actors that I don't like as much as Kane. So it's like a double-edged sword because I love Kane Hodder as Jason, but his films as Jason, the films themselves are not as enjoyable to me as a lot of the previous entries. So, but I also really liked I like Ken Krasner, even though he only did it once in Freddy vs. Jason. I thought he did a really good job. And then Derek Mears.
Oh yeah.
In the remake,
which
the killer cut.
I dig the remake.
I do too. A lot of people don't. A lot of people hate it, but I thought it was a cool way to do it, to just kind of recap the first movie as like, this is what happened to lead to. I think it was kind of a smart way to do it, and it's too bad they quit doing the remakes in that time, because like that came hot off the heels. Well, it was even the same director of the Texas Chainsaw remake, which I actually too.
Same director,
right?
Compared to a lot of the remakes we get nowadays, I actually go back. I think those ones aged a little bit better, and I enjoy those more than some of the other things that we get. Royce was talking about one of the scripts for Freddy vs. Jason that I think in today's day and age actually would have took off, because now like fan base and just the film as a whole, like people really love like legacy characters. And so like a Freddy vs. Jason film that would have brought in other legacy characters, human surviving characters from the franchise, I think would go over really well in today's market, and I think would still be enjoyable. But
like Never Hike Alone.
Yeah,
I mean, that was great, and bringing back Tom Matthews as Tommy Jarvis was like spot on. I mean, fuck yeah. And then the sequel, you know.
Do you guys have a Jason film or a Friday film in the franchise that like you just hate or can't stand at all?
Oh man, I mean,
or if not that, at least which one do you think is the poorest of
the one I watched the least is Jason Takes Manhattan.
Yeah, I would have to.
That's my same answer. Okay, outside of watching and we just talked about this in previous podcasts.
I call that film Jason Takes the Boat on the way to Manhattan.
But I would rather watch The Punch.
I would rather watch Jason X than Jason Takes Manhattan.
You know, Jason X is like, it's one of those things. You know, it's like a guilty pleasure. You put on in the background while you're sculpting a mask or doing a makeup or something like that. You put it on in the background, and
it's just so ridiculous. It's enjoyable.
Yeah, it is. And at certain points, you know when to look up and be like, oh yeah.
And of all of
check this out.
I mean, even though it's not fair, but I'm sure Royce can tell me for sure. Jason X had the highest budget out of any Freddy or any Friday franchise film to date, right?
This is what I know, and I'm going to say that allegedly. That way, we're all free and clear of.
Yes.
So back when I did my website days, I won't even say that it is Jason X, but some of the people that worked on some of those movies told me that there was a person who was in charge of accounting that they got the negative pickup money to do one of the films, and they managed to produce it for less than they got, so they pocketed the change.
Oh.
Because all the negative pickup says is, we're going to give you this much money, and if you go over that, that's on you. So it's in the best interest of the producer to keep it under budget, And I guess ideally you'd want to do it for less, but to go, to keep, six figures, to keep, or five figures, to be like, oh, I can buy a couple of cars with the money I saved here or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
but I think that kind of practice, and I guess this would probably lead into the lawsuit of why we have no films since 2009 is, and then there's that TV series for Peacock that they were trying to do, and then it went off. They stopped doing it, but now they're going to do it again. Is so Victor wrote a screenplay based on, because according to Harry and Adam and all those people, uh, the way Sean did the deals, and I'm not even singling him out. I'm just saying that a lot of those people did those. Let's make a movie. And they would do a handshake deal. You know,
Hmm.
I'm let's write
Hmm.
the screenplay together. Let's do a napkin deal, and then when we get the money, then we'll do the real contract. Or sometimes there
Right.
was no napkin deal. It was just all verbal. Well,
Right.
Sean wanted to make a potboiler film. He wanted to make a horror movie, and it was they were toying around with ideas of what venue to put the old dark house concept, Agatha Christie thing. And I think it was Victor's idea, maybe, to say, well, why not a summer camp? And I guess maybe Sean was like, "Cool, sounds good. Let's do it. Let's do that." He wrote Long Night at Camp Blood. That was the screenplay that
Hmm.
Victor wrote, not Friday 13th.
Yeah.
That's Sean's title.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and all the characters in the screenplay, Alice, everything, Mrs. Voorhees, the name Jason Voorhees, all of that was a name that Victor created. Um, he knew a guy named Voorhees when he was a kid. Jason is a
Hmm.
combination of his son Ian and his son Josh. That's where Jason came from. Um, so when they finally did the deal was, I'm going to pay you some money, and Paramount Warner Brothers did the negative pickup for foreign and distribution. But Sean got rich, and Victor didn't get all those residual points and those things. So after 30 years, I think the Writers Guild, or 40 years, the Writers Guild said anything that was a negative, that was a work for a spec script, you can go to claim your copyright back. And Sean claimed that it was still a work for hire, even though there wasn't the contract. And he goes, everything in that screenplay I wrote. You didn't come up with the characters. You didn't create the name of the characters. You didn't da 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 da. So because now I think if I remember correctly, Sean won one territory, like either U.S. or foreign, and Victor won the
Right.
other. But
Yeah.
each of them winning the other doesn't do anything for anything, because there's no studio in the world that's
Right.
going to make a Jason Voorhees movie that you can't sell everywhere else in the world. So until they
Right.
can agree on something, there's no way to make a film
Yes.
or a
Which
TV
which
show.
leads which leads us to what I want to talk about now is the Friday the 13th fan films.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Because that's why we have the Friday the 13th fan films. Then all of them, I mean, that's why.
And
And
filmmakers
some
like
of them are,
Tommy McLaughlin, and also filmmakers like Adam Marcus, two of them are the biggest champions for those fan films existing.
we have Vengeance, we have Don't Never Hike Alone, then
Roseblood,
then
which is the return of
which
Tina, and
um
Harry actually did the score for that. What did we think of the book Crystal Lake Memories, and then the documentary of that same book?
uh I never read the book, but I've seen the documentary. I love the documentary. I mean, it's just a plethora of knowledge. I mean, there's everything that you want to know, but still, it's not. It, there's still behind the scenes stuff that I want to dig into. That there's the stuff like like you asking Harry tonight, like how many beers did it take? Just stuff that nobody knows is I think that stuff is the interesting things that I want to hear. Because from a filmmaker standpoint, it's like there's like the last production I was on. There's so much there that nobody will ever know unless I come out with a book or a documentary or something about it. It's like, what actors didn't like each other on sets and stuff like that, and on film sets, what actor's sleeping with this actor?
Well, if you read the Crystal Lake Memory book and then the documentary, they said that part 7, they on the set they labeled it Friday the 13th because there was cast and crew that were hooking up, a lot of people, and there was people in the cast that they were playing people that liked the person they were having the scene partner with, but they would have preferred someone else in the cast, really,
Oh,
and
jeez.
so apparently
Yeah, I didn't remember that.
Tina's mom was fit that description. Tina's boyfriend in the movie fit that description, and one or two the other cast members. Oh yeah, well, they in the book they say,
Yeah, yeah, I
um,
know,
Yeah.
I
just
know.
like
Yeah.
allegedly, Part 5 had the biggest budget on craft services for cocaine, and I'm wondering, these different Friday movies, you have different people within the same film credited as the stunt double or the main actor. Like, as an example, Michael Myers is Tony Moran, but he's also Nick Castle. One's the Shape, one's
Yeah.
Michael Myers. Part 2,
Without the
Warrington
mask. Yeah.
Gillette, and there's also Steve Dash. So
Yes. Steve Dash.
for part 2, which one for you is Jason?
Uh, Steve Dash. Well, okay, I'm drawing a blank right here. Steve Dash was in the makeup, right? Or am I?
No,
Or
Gillette
was it
is the one
Warrington?
where the makeup came
Gillette?
off, and he did jump through the
Okay.
window, and he had a couple of scenes, but he couldn't do other
Okay.
stuff, so they replaced him with Steve
Right.
Dash.
So okay. So yeah. Okay. So to me, when the bag came off, that's Jason. So Warrington Gillette is the Jason. But in the film, it's Warrington Gillette got the only credit. Steve Dash wasn't credited at all as part of
Yeah, he
this.
only got credited as a stunt double. Same thing with Michael Myers. The
Yeah,
Shape is Nick Castle, and then the mask
yeah,
comes off. That's Michael Myers. But the
yeah,
majority of the physical performance, all the killing, was done by Nick Castle.
yes,
Same thing with Mrs. Voorhees. Betsy Palmer didn't kill nobody. The stunt
Right.
person did.
right.
The camera did. All that stuff. Tom Savini and Tasso
Tom
did all
Savini.
the
Yeah,
killing. So, but is
yeah,
Betsy Palmer really? She didn't do any of the killing scenes.
right. She wasn't even her own hands. Yes. So
Yeah,
even when she died, it wasn't her.
Harry
Yeah.
Knuckles.
So
Yeah,
yes, Harry
Yeah.
Knuckles. It was Harry Knuckles.
but
That's
what's
a character I have to put in a movie. Harry Knuckles.
the
Harry
suspension of
Knuckles.
disbelief when you know that a stuntman did most of the scenes, or that it was Tom fuckery with the camera? You know, how, as an artist, because there's this suspension of disbelief as the audience, and then there's the artist for you, knowing that it's all the trickery. Where does that separation lie, and how do you determine who is the one that you attribute the
Oh,
performance to? I have a fan question to ask both of you, and this is like when I interviewed people for my website, I got all kinds of like sideways glances from the artists that made the movies, because they're like, nobody cares. It's like, but I do. I'm sure fans do. So, um, a lot of franchises, they tell you kind of where the movie takes place. They give you time and place. Like Chainsaw, we know is in the 70s. We know when it is, and we know it's in Texas. We know that Springwood is in Ohio. We know that
mhm.
Michael Myers is in Illinois. It's inferred heavily that Crystal Lake is in New Jersey. But
Yes,
but they never tell you exactly, and they also don't tell you
right.
exactly the year the movie takes place. but they kind of make it.
Right.
They kind of,
What?
Pamela's tombstone tells you that part one was in '79, and Tommy aging so many years, and Tina going age 10, age 17. There's some jumps in time, but what do you think of the fact it's so vague?
Well, in the first Friday the 13th, we do get a date, 1957.
Yeah, but then they don't tell you when present day is. I mean, we don't
Right.
know exactly.
Right.
But do you think it's better when it's vague, or when
I
they?
always
Yeah,
I always assumed it was 1980.
yeah.
Yeah. What do you think?
I mean, I guess I always assumed it was in the 80s. I think it depends on the franchise as to like whether that works to its strength or not. For the Friday franchise, I think it works to the strength of the mystery of like the Camp Crystal Lake. It's your every lake. It could be that camp, that lake camp of anywhere. So I think that works to the strength of the Friday franchise and it being never fully disclosed specifically where at one time, because over the years we've got a franchise that spans, from the end of the 70s into, well, I guess technically into the future because of Jason X. But
Yeah.
if you take any of those films, I mean, most of it you're gonna have to mostly place in the 80s, but really you're not getting the only film you're really getting anything city life wise is
The
Manhattan.
Manhattan. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like outside of that, it could be any date.
What's funny is
Yeah.
And
part
so
2, 3, and 4 all take place in the same weekend. So one of them is Saturday the 14th. So it's
Yes.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah,
Which one do
There
you
you
think
go.
is the best
There you go.
soundtrack of all the films? Not just Harry's music, but
Oh, fuck. Yeah.
Harry's
Part
music, and
three.
then
Part three. Yeah.
the
No,
disco
I'm
theme.
kidding. I'm
Yeah.
kidding. Yeah. Yeah. I love Jason Lives. I love the soundtrack for Jason Lives. But New Blood. I, the opening credits and the end
So
credits
the
are like
Fred Molan
fucking
music,
amazing.
the Fred Molan music, the
I mean, but like
soundtrack for Part 7. Harry's
arguably,
music is amazing in Part 7.
Yes.
yeah, I mean everything. I don't know how many specific because they just I might be wrong on this because I don't know verbatim, but they just reused his music on a handful of the films, right? He didn't come back in and actually redo new
Well,
music except for
well,
maybe one of them.
this is what I know. So he did the score of Top to Soup to Nuts. He did the score for Part 1. He did the score for Part 2. When he did Part 3, he was doing another project. So Steve Miner just said, "I need music. I need original music for the opening reel and the end reel, and then everything else in between. We'll just recycle parts 1 and 2." Part 4, he did
Yes.
original music. 5, he did original music, and 6, he did original music. 7 was some his stuff, and then they you did synth and extra sound effects, sound design to fill it out too, and then 8 they did the same thing, and then 9 and 10 was him and stuff. So, but the thing that's the constant in all the films, because they change Jason all the time, is his music is like the heartbeat of the series.
Yes.
It's the hockey mask
Yes.
and it's Harry's music are the only two constants in the entire franchise. You know, well, except for
Hmm.
part 1 and 2, they don't have the hockey mask, but still, Harry's music,
Right.
and it's his voice. It's
You can
his
bleep.
voice doing that soundtrack. That is his
Yeah,
voice.
Yes. Yeah.
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 I remember when I was a kid and talking to other kid horror fans. There's always the dispute of what was actually being said or what
Oh
was
yeah. Yeah.
being
Yeah.
uttered for the music. Like until we come into the day and age where like you can listen to Harry tell you this is what it was.
Yeah.
That was always I almost missed the days of like always the back and forth of what did he actually say or what was actually used for this, that, and the other thing.
Everybody
Even though we
thinks
all
they
know.
know what he's saying in 5, but they don't. He's only said it in an interview once. It's usually "kill mommy," you know, in part 5, because of what the spoiler is, for the identity of the killer, it's not kill, kill, mom, mom, mom. It's Tommy, 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 Tommy.
Kill Roy.
It's just him saying Tommy, because you're supposed to think Tommy's going crazy. So it's a
Right.
it's a version of Tommy kill, Tommy, Tommy, Tommy. But I was convinced it was Tommy the whole time, and until you see the mask come off and you see who the killer is. But then the end scene
Yeah, see it's Roy.
in the hospital room, you think it's
Spoiler
Tommy
alert.
again.
We've spent hours just talking about part 5, and how much we like it.
I do like part 5, but it's funny to think about, because part 6 being my favorite, as I mentioned earlier, I always have to stop and think about, well, it also at the same point just it just said fuck everything that happened in 5 and just continued on, even though I'm glad 6 is what it is, because it is my favorite, but it just kind of said fuck it, we're just gonna do what happens in many franchises, and let's forget.
Well, 5 and 6 have the exact same editor. He did part 5, Bruce Green, and he felt so sleazy and dirty. But then Mancuso said, "Oh no, please come back for 6. It's going to be a real film this time, not a sleazy movie." And I think it's Harry's favorite movie of the series is part 6, because it was tongue in cheek. The director was having fun with it. There was all these little Easter eggs.
Yeah.
Until he had to go back and do the reshoots for part 6, the director, there was 13 kills in the movie. But then when Mancuso said, "We need more kills," so then they killed the caretaker, and then they killed the 2 people on the motorcycle. So then there was more.
Right.
Then there was more kills, and then there was not 13 anymore. But
yeah, and I wish the an uncut version of that would come out.
did you ever see that Fangoria magazine in the 80s, in the 90s, or whatever it was, that had all these articles where they interviewed the real effects people from part 6, and they showed
Yeah.
Horseshack's heart, and all that stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, I want to see an uncut version of that. I want to see an uncut version of 7 too.
Oh, footage doesn't exist except for VHS tapes. They said that the studio sent a mandate to destroy the footage. It was like you hear about like Blade Runner and other films where films just sat on a pallet, and it actually had a notice on the pallet that said destroy, and somebody forgot to destroy it, so it sat there, and that's the only reason why it wasn't destroyed. So, but nobody thought about DVDs back then, so all this footage is like, we don't need this.
Right. Yeah, it's like
it's too bad, really.
Did you ever see the uncut footage from part 2? It's on the box set. Carl Fullerton had found a VHS tape of Alice getting the ice pick through the temple, and the shish kebab scene in the bed that was like the Mario Bava twitch of the death nerve scene.
Mm-hmm.
You would think. So they cut all those things out of the movies, and Kane Hodder has said the only time in anything where the censor board made something happen where it improved the kill was the sleeping bag scene. Because the original sleeping bag scene went on forever, and it was just geysers of blood flying everywhere. But by Jason picking up the sleeping bag and giving it one swoof, whack against the tree, and it just kills her like that. It actually makes Jason stronger because of that one thing.
Yeah, and a lot of people say that's their favorite Jason kill.
It's Jason. It's Kane Hodder's favorite kill.
Thinking about that.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
So I have to ask you guys, what's your favorite Jason kill? Besides that one.
Besides that one. The tent kill in Jason Goes to Hell is pretty brutal. A girl gets it through the with a fence post while she's mid coitus.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I would say, what's yours? You got? I'll say mine. I mine would be in part 2, okay,
Yeah.
where the guy in the wheelchair gets it, because the build up to that one, I mean, you know what's going to happen, and it's just he gets whacked in the face, and then the wheelchair coming down the stair. I mean, yeah, it's probably my favorite. Yeah. So now, what's yours? You can't say the guy in the wheelchair.
Yeah, and I was thinking about it, just not because I think it's the greatest, but like it's always one that pops in my head when I start thinking about them, and just the strike. Man, I kind of want to cheat and say like one of my favorite kills is actually like a Jason kill,
Mm-hmm.
and in part 4, where he slides down the
Down the blade.
machete,
Yeah, yeah,
is like,
yeah.
and so it's kind of cheating because it's
Right,
not a human
right,
kill, but that is probably one of my favorite
right,
effect sequences
right.
in the whole
Yeah, we
franchise.
could say, what's your favorite Jason death, because
Yeah,
he's been killed, like what Tom Savini said, like 58 times.
yeah,
And but yeah, I mean, Friday the 13th Part 4 is so great for Jason getting the
the
hand,
hand,
yeah,
yeah,
and the machete in the head. It's like, yeah,
yeah. He gets fucked up in 4,
he gets fucked up.
pretty good.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
did it. I mean, he gets pretty fucked up at the beginning of Jason Goes to Hell too.
yeah, he does. I mean,
I was
he gets
very
blown all to hell.
I don't hate Jason Goes to Hell. It's not definitely not one of my favorites, but I remember seeing that one for the first time, and that opening sequence of like him just getting lit the fuck up by, however many, police officers and shit are there. I remember like that being a super explosive beginning and being very excited.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
then like the rest of the movie being like, because
Yeah,
at a younger age, I was like, what the fuck? Give me Jason, like I want, but I think even though the first Friday was actually the first Friday I saw, it was like nobody told me that Jason was not in the first Friday the 13th. Like, so before watching any of the
right,
Jason movies, I was fully aware of like Jason as a
right.
character, and so going into it, venturing off and watching movies on my own, because I was one of the few I watched early on as a kid that I just watched on my own volition, because it wasn't like a necessarily a favorite of anybody in like my family that was like, hey, let's watch this,
Right.
like Halloween was or something like
Yeah,
that.
that's like me. The first Jason film I saw was Friday the 13th, and Friday the 13th Part 2 the same night. Uh, that was my introduction to Jason. There was no Jason in Part 1, so it was Pamela Voorhees in Part 1. Like,
Yeah.
and then I had no clue who was going to be, who the killer was in Part 2. I I never got into the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, because Freddy's a punk. Freddy talks too much, and Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees were like my favorites, because they never spoke. There's no need to speak. You know, and I just thought, yeah, and Chucky too. Chucky talks too much. Shut the
Did
fuck up. Just kill people.
did
Just
did you always find did even as a kid I found it strange. Like everybody always lists like Jason, Michael, Freddy are always like the top. They're like the big three.
I
But
like
like I never
Leatherface
like
more than Freddy.
I do
I do too.
I might
Yeah,
do too,
because
but I never
he doesn't talk.
yeah, I never understood why Freddy was placed along with Jason and Michael. Like for me, Freddy was always a different kind
Yeah,
of character.
yeah,
Like he was
I would agree
always
with that.
above and beyond supernatural. I always I would place Freddy more in an atmosphere of like, Pinhead or something, because he's just not. They're not. And none of the Nightmare movies feel like a slasher film like the Friday or the Halloween franchises do. So I never
Right.
understood that, why they always get placed together. We're like, if you're gonna place one in there, I would understand Leatherface getting placed in there, but I think as a whole, the Friday franchise is better than the Nightmare franchise 100%. Because
Yeah.
honestly, I think honestly most of the Nightmare movies, I could say honestly, I don't enjoy, and I don't think that great of movies. I have a soft spot for 3.
Hey, I don't think they're scary. I don't think
No,
they're scary at
Well,
all.
I
Wes
remember.
Craven's New Nightmare, I think, is probably the best of them because, but it's
Yes, it
not
is
even
the best one.
it's not funny.
And here's why I love it so much. It's the same reason I love Once Upon a Time in Hollywood or any other film that takes you on a movie set. I just automatically love it because I love being on set.
You know, one movie that I really love a lot, but I also love Brian De Palma quite a bit is Body Double,
Yeah, yeah,
and
I do
also
too.
Travolta in Blowout.
Blowout, yes,
You know, and it's so
yes,
haunting at the end when he's laying in the actual scream from Nancy Allen. He goes, "It's a good scream," you know, and it's chilling because they're shooting the opening scene at the beginning, and then this fake actress is trying to scream, and it sounds stupid, and then at the end he uses the scream from the real person in the
yeah,
movie, and he's haunted. He's just puffing on a cigarette, and he goes, "It's a good scream. It's a good scream." Um,
yeah.
I think Brian De Palma's a filmmaker that doesn't get a lot of credit because his
Right,
earlier movies are
right.
kind of, you know, that they would probably not make them today.
Yeah. But you know who's a great horror movie director that you don't think of? That is a horror movie director, and that is John Frankenheimer.
Oh
There
yeah.
it is. Knew you.
Yes,
Oh, by the way, guys,
Prophecy.
Yep, there it
I
is.
got a little surprise for you. Somebody's going to be chiming into the group chat that is directly related to the series. He's one of the filmmakers.
Oh,
Like
excellent.
right now.
Just about. Yep. He just sent me a message back
Sweet.
saying he's about to hop on.
Whoa, this is a surprise.
It's a
But
Friday
Yep.
surprise.
oh,
Yep.
all right.
Excellent. We love it. We'll take it.
Is
Absolutely.
it Tom McLaughlin? Oh
No.
no.
But don't
Okay.
guess because I have a horrible poker face. Um, but he definitely directed one of the movies that Harry scored.
Oh,
Hmm,
But
this is a surprise to us. Yeah.
he's busy guy, so he said he'd come on for a little bit. And this guy is always
Wow.
energetic. I mean, he'll talk your ear off if you let him.
Oh, Adam
The
Marcus.
great Adam Marcus.
Hey guys,
Yes.
Oh,
welcome.
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 how y'all doing, guys?
Oh, we're not worthy.
We're not.
Thank you, Royce.
Yep.
Yes.
We had Harry
Amazing.
on a little while ago.
Oh, that's fantastic,
Yeah.
Uncle Heshy.
Yeah, he was even eating at a restaurant and talking to us. And like, wow, such a great guy.
He's an amazing man.
Oh.
I've known him since I was 9.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. I met Uncle Heshy when I was 9 years old when they were making the first Friday.
Wow.
You were on the set of the first Friday, weren't
Sure
you?
was. Sure was. Yep.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And then I was there for all
Sweet.
of editorial and all the rest of it.
So while you were on the set, you know, I've been on many a film set. Did you think Friday the 13th was going to become what it is
God
today?
no. I mean, again, by the time I was on set, I was I think 10 or 11, and no, I was just a pig in shit. Like I was so excited to be there and to to feel like I was part of something much bigger than myself. So no, it was amazing. It was an amazing experience. Yeah. And just made me want to do what I would do.
So I'll ask you about the film you wrote and directed for
Sure.
the franchise. What was your initial idea to go and completely break the mold for the rest of the franchise? Because we've done this slasher. Jason's been a slasher. We're doing this every single time. Was it all right? Something's got to give here. We need to give the fans.
That was a lot of the talk around it. And look, you have to remember, when what had happened was I had set up a movie for Sean at Disney called Johnny Zombie. And so while that movie was going, I was originally supposed to direct that. That was going to be my directorial debut. And the movie had become kind of a juggernaut, and there was a bidding war between New Line and Disney for it. And Disney, of course, had deeper pockets. I begged Sean to make the movie with New Line because New Line knew how to make an R-rated horror comedy musical, and Disney did not. So, but Sean never met a dollar that he ever said no to. So he was like, no, we're going to go with the big money. Well, suddenly they were making an $8.5 million movie. They're not going to let a 22-year-old film student do that. So I turned to him and I said, hey, you promised me a movie. I've just delivered you a movie. You've made a ton of money. Give me a movie. And his response to that was, New Line is buying Jason Voorhees away from Paramount. If you can figure out a way to get that fucking hockey mask out of the movie, I'll let you write and direct it. And so, talk about a blessing and a curse at the same moment.
Okay, I have a question
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
Okay, are there any Easter eggs in the film that haven't been found?
No, I think they've all been pretty much found. I mean, look, you have to remember the biggest Easter egg in the movie is the Necronomicon and the blade. So those two items for so long weren't even talked about. Like everybody recognized they were there, but people never asked me like, hey, why is the Necronomicon there? Like, what is that about? And the minute I gave an answer, which was so many years after the movie came out, because really nobody ever brought it up. And what's amazing is they'd already made a Ash versus Freddy versus Jason comic book. So I was like, well, everybody already gets this already. Like, nobody needs me to explain it. So when people started asking me to explain it, I was like, well, yeah. I mean, if Pamela would do anything to have her son back, wouldn't she turn to the dark arts to get him back? Why wouldn't she?
Yeah.
And the idea behind that, to go back to Craig, to your question, is that I felt as a 12-year-old watching Friday the 13th Part 2, I felt like the studio was treating me like I was a fucking moron. Because I went, okay, so wait. So you're making a movie about a little boy who was in the lake at the end of Part 1, which, by the way, is why Sean Cunningham didn't return to do Part 2. Sean Cunningham never saw an idea that John Carpenter had that he didn't want to rip off and make his own. So he liked John Carpenter. John Carpenter didn't want to tell tales of Michael Myers. John Carpenter wanted to tell tales of Halloween, right? So when he was asked to make another movie, he goes off and writes, Season of the Witch, which to my money is actually the only true sequel to the original Halloween, because that's what Carpenter wanted to do.
And I love
because it's terrific. It's a great Halloween movie.
Film.
Yeah, it is.
And it's also Carpenter's wonderful sense of humor, because, they're watching Halloween in his movie. Like, he's even being referential to himself in the movie. Like, it's so clever and wonderful. So Sean wanted to make Tales of the Unluckiest Day of the Year. That's what he wanted to do. When Paramount said, we want to make Part 2. Part 1's a juggernaut. You've done incredibly well. You knocked The Empire Strikes Back out of first place. You're the man. We want to make another movie. And he said, great. So I'd love to tell a story of the next, bad Friday the 13th experience. They went, great. That kid from the lake would be good. And he was like, that's idiotic. The kid who died 30 years ago, that's the movie you want to make. What is that movie? Like, I made a movie about a human person. Here's the thing. Sean loves the money that horror makes for him. But Sean does not like horror movies. That is a fallacy. He's very good at giving you why horror movies work. He's a very studied kind of professorial index of things like that. But the truth is that Sean, the whole time I was working for Sean, we were working on everything but horror. He did not want to do horror. He wanted to make musicals. He wanted to make a country western musical. That's how Jay Ugley got involved with us in the first place. He was doing a movie about sideshow freaks that he wanted Sean Penn to play this guy with no legs. It was all about drama, and like he wanted. Look, one of the first moments we had with Sean, we're all eating El Pollo Loco out in his backyard, and he asked us like where we saw ourselves in 5 years, and we're all giving, Dean Laurie and myself and his son Noel, who's my best friend growing up, we're all giving our highfalutin answers of where we're going to be in 5 years. And I said to Sean, what about you? And he said, winning an Academy Award. And I was like waiting for him to like laugh, to like, something. And I was like, okay. Cool. Like, great. But guys, come on. Sean S. Cunningham, the creator of Friday the 13th, and let's not even mention Last House on the Left, they're not giving that guy an Academy Award ever. Alfred Hitchcock died without an Academy Award. The guy who made Friday the 13th, that's not happening. So you go like, look, man, yeah, there have been that rare occasion where a genre filmmaker has somehow slipped through and found a way to that kind of respectability. I'm not talking about success. I'm talking about just respectability, right? And it's a bullshit respectability. Let's be honest. Oh, look, here's your statue. Who gives a shit? Honestly, a chainsaw award is a better piece of design anyway. So, right? Give me a break. But
absolutely.
But this guy did not want to make horror movies. So when Friday the 13th 2 comes out, right, and Sean he does not do it. All he does is he puts the guy who was me before me, which is Steve Miner. So Steve Miner was the kid. That was his name in the company. I got that mantle when I came into the company. And Steve Miner goes into direct, and Sean's wife, Susan Cunningham, cuts Friday the 13th Part 2. By the way, for my money,
it's better.
Part 6 and Part 2 are the best movies in the franchise. So I put them above my movie. Yes. I'm not that asshole who's like, mine's the best. No, stop. I put mine as a solid third. And I'll fight anyone who wants to fight me on it. But here's the thing. Part 2, you have to throw your brain out of your head. Because you have to go, okay, so a little boy who was stuck at the bottom of a lake has somehow grown 120 pounds of body mass, has learned how to read, because the only way you could get someone's address was going to the white pages, right? Has learned how to drive, because I don't think he stumbled through Crystal Lake carrying Mama's head and her sweater, right? Not to mention the fact that he had to carry Alice back to his shack. Right? To the Love Shack.
Yes.
So here's this guy who now has all this ability, and he gets to her house and he sets up a prank. He's got a great sense of humor. Put the head in the refrigerator for her to find. I'm not going to just kill her.
Yeah.
No. No, this is going to be hilarious. And then he creeps behind the fridge and waits. Come on. The hydrocephalic-headed little boy, the little boy on the spectrum who was at the bottom of the lake for 30 years, that's the guy pulling the prank in Alice's kitchenette? It's ridiculous. So at 12, I was like, who's killing her? That can't be the kid from the lake. That's nuts. And I love when people try to retroactively go, well, I think it was Jason's father who did. Oh, shut up. Just shut up. No, it's not. There's no Jason's father. That was, by the way, Elijah Voorhees. Elijah Voorhees was a creation inside of Cunningham Studios that was Jason's father after it was his brother. There's a treatment of Jason Goes to Hell that is about Jason's brother, Elijah Voorhees. So all of this stuff gets put into comic books and fan fiction, all this other bullshit. It all came from a 32-page treatment that I wrote in 3 days after Sean said, get the fucking hockey mask out of the movie. And a ton of lore has sprung from those 32 pages. It's hilarious. Which, by the way, was the first movie I wanted to make that would be Jason Goes to Hell. And it was a far darker movie. It was actually really freaking sick. It would have been the most violent, most grotesque studio film ever made. Because I was like, hey, man, let's go for broke. Like, let's do this. Like, okay. Like, let's make the first NC-17 Friday the 13th movie. So I was all about that.
Oh, yeah.
And New Line were like, hey, we like a lot of this. This is a little too intense. So that's how we ended up going back to what ended up becoming Jason Goes to Hell. A lot of the seeds were there, but it was a much darker movie.
Would you say overall you were happy with the end product?
Oh, yeah.
Compared to like your original vision, because obviously, studio interference is always a hurdle for a lot of filmmakers.
It sure is. But you know what? New Line was awesome. Like, the people at New Line were great. I had great executives. Look, there are places that I'll trash. There are people that have been, assholes along the route, no doubt. But No, I mean, look, Bob Shea was not the nicest guy in the world. That's for sure. He was a douche. But I have to say, he wasn't really my boss. Mark Ordesky and Mike DeLuca were really my bosses, and they were kind and supportive. And look, guys, they came to set 3 days, the first 3 days, and then they never came again. They were like, this guy's got it. We're good. And every once in a while, they would give my cinematographer a call and say, how's he doing? And Bill Dill was like, he's like he's been shooting movies for 50 years. So they were never worried about it, and they saw dailies and they loved the dailies. So everything was kosher. It was all good. It was, look, Sean's rough, guys. Sean's a rough dude. And he's
I got a question.
Yeah, please.
So I heard through the grapevine, through commentaries and all this stuff over the years, that walk us through the shooting at a different frame rate to speed things up and caused a shorter running time fiasco.
So Jason Goes to Hell was the second film in the history of cinema to be shot at 22 frames per second for the entire runtime. The first film was the Sean Cunningham classic, Deep Star 6. Now, there's two reasons for this. One is that Sean, who is by the way, by his own words, this is not me putting words in his mouth. Sean Cunningham was asked by Peter Bracke, who wrote Crystal Lake Memories, who's a very close friend of mine and is now one of the producers of the documentary Hearts of Darkness, which is coming out later this year. Peter Bracke asked him about style, about his directing style. And Sean Cunningham said, I have no style. I don't understand style. Style is for brats in film school. Okay? So there was no style here. Sean thinks that modern actors, take too fucking long to do anything, quote unquote. He says, you want to know how to get an actor to go to the door when they ask you what the motivation is? Tell them their fucking paycheck is on the other side of the door. And this is the sensitivity with which he directs. So first, he thinks that everything should move quicker, right? So tighten it all up, right? The second reason is that we used to be shooting on 35 millimeter film. Well, if you cut 2 frames from every second, you've just cut 10% of your film budget and your development budget. So Sean was trying to do everything. And again, look, the one thing I will always say about Sean, well, two things. One, he gave me my shot. And I never disrespect him for that. I honor the fact that he did that. I love him for that. He was very much like a father to me growing up. It's just that when money gets involved, Sean, you could be his son. It doesn't matter. So the second thing about Sean is that he is the second best physical line producer I've ever worked with. He knows how to squeeze a dollar out of a dime. He's that guy. And bless him for that. Like, that is an amazing thing that he's able to do. So I will give the devil their due. And when I say the devil their due, I mean the actual living devil his due. That said, he makes choices that are less about creativity and more about money. And while that's a good thing in a line producer, it's not a great thing in a creative producer, because as a creative producer, you need someone who a director needs to feel like no matter where I go, this guy's got my back. And because otherwise you're going to play everything safe. And look, Sean's career is a series of safeties. He did things that made money because he saw someone else do it. He didn't invent anything. Friday the 13th is purely a ripoff of Bay of Blood and Halloween. That's all it is. It's all it is. It's a great title. It's a great title. And there are a great many wonderful artists who worked on that movie, who did great work. There are great actors in that movie. Harry Manfredini did great on that movie. But let's be honest, even with Harry, he was pushed toward Bernard Herrmann because that worked. So look, filmmaking in general should be an act of daring do. You should be wanting to jump off the cliff and really create something at least with an original voice. There is nothing original anymore. Like, everything's been done, sure.
Right.
But we can all make things that are in our voice new, that are original, because we're bringing ourselves to that.
Exactly.
Well, when you've got a director who says, I have no style, style is for idiot film students, what's that voice? Like, what is your original voice? There is none. And so that is that. Look, it's his curse. That's a, people talk about, the man in the iron mask. Sean is the man in the resin mask. He never made a movie with that hockey mask until my film. Mine's the only one he ever did. Prior to that, he had just done part 1, which is about Jason's mom. And however, he had that fucking hockey mask, as he called it, strapped to his head from part 3 on. By the way, when he saw the sack in part 2, his response to that was, what is this, Elephant Man, the horror movie? Like, what are we making? And then they showed him the hockey mask in part 3, and he went, ugh, I thought the sack was stupid. So, not a guy jumping off the cliff. He's not.
Well, you definitely got rid of the hockey mask.
We did. But by the way, here's something that the movie doesn't get credit for, is that, yes, I got rid of the mask, but I'm also a giant fan of these movies, just as much as every kid that was sitting in the theater. And so every time he passes a reflective surface, there's the hockey mask, which, by the way, was a son of a bitch to do. I didn't have CGI. I had to do all that stuff theatrically. Like, we had to build that in, right? That was a ton of my day, was figuring out how to get reflective surfaces with the mask. And then at the end of the movie, I brought the mask back. I mean, talk about a middle finger to Sean. I was like, no, we got to bring it back. Give the fans what they came to pay for. And along the route, how about trying something different? Because look, let's be honest, guys, how many movies are we going to have with the same guy running through the same woods, murdering teenagers? We got it. Do something different. And they kept trying to do something different. Come on, New York. Jason takes a boat ride until he gets to Montreal.
There you go. Yes.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy Jason Goes to Hell until I was older, because as a stupid kid, you're just wanting Jason after Jason after Jason. It wasn't until you get a little bit older where you respect the difference that made. And like seeing that movie as an adult for me would have been completely different. It would have been for like everybody fucking hated Halloween Ends, but I love Halloween Ends because we went off and did something fucking different, and I loved it for that, and it was well done. And so it was a much needed thing for the franchise, just like Jason Goes to Hell was. I have to ask, because there's some obvious things there, but like thinking about movies in previous days, like The Thing or The Hidden, I'm obviously those are influences. But like, what other films influenced you in your filmmaking?
Well, I mean, look, I had not seen The Hidden when I made Jason Goes to Hell, which is hilarious because Jack Shoulder saw the movie, saw Jason Goes to Hell, and was like, "Wow, I guess let's call this an homage." And I was like, "You go right ahead, Jack." But for me, Jason Goes to Hell is really The Thing inspired. That's what it is. For me, that movie is it's seminal, and also, and this is something that I just realized very recently, which is funny. So I have never in my life, I've never drank alcohol or done any drugs of any kind. And that is not a political thing. That's not, I had a family of alcoholics, none of that. I did not have that experience. And God bless anybody who has had that experience. So I didn't have this negative thing about it. What I saw was people out of control when they would drink or do drugs. And I grew up in a very affluent community in Connecticut, where Sean was, that was all artists and whatnot. And just everybody had access to everything. I mean, my every dance at my high school could have been winter themed because of the amount of snow. So I didn't like the way everybody presented themselves when they were fucked up. Like, I didn't dig it. And again, I'm one of those guys, I think everything should be legal. Make it legal, tax the shit out of it, let people do their thing. Like, you want to put in your body, baby. I got no standing. Don't get behind the wheel of a car. You go fuck yourself, then you're gonna hurt somebody. But as long as it's just you and your shit, enjoy. Like, God bless. But for me, that loss of self-control, that loss of self, scared the shit out of me as a kid. I didn't like that idea. And it's what kept me away from it my whole life. What I can tell you is that because of that, I am always afraid of the idea of something invading. This concept of something taking your body and you're still trapped inside of it, right? I've had a couple very close friends, most specifically Stacy Tidal, the director. I don't know if you guys remember her, but she did The Bye Bye Man, but she also did this incredible movie, a favorite of mine, called The Last Supper, with her husband, Jonathan Penner, who was cut from Jason Goes to Hell. He's in the movie, but he got cut out. And the two of them made that movie. Stacy had ALS. And to watch that illness take over her person is so fucking terrifying, right? So Jason Goes to Hell, the terror for me was this idea of, wait a second, Josh the cop is still inside that body. He's still there. It's just that Jason has taken it over for the time being. And Jason's evil is so fucking putrid, is so intense, that it is literally boiling that person alive inside their skin. And so for me, the Melting Man moment is like such an important piece of that movie, because it's not just that you get taken over by Jason, then he leaves, and he leaves you in a boiling suit of goo. So that for me was, the movie was really about that loss of identity and that the terror of that. Also the idea that anybody can be Jason. Who's going to be Jason next? I mean, for God's sakes, I cast my brother as Jason in this movie. Like, my brother Kip is Jason in this movie. Now, I will say this, and I give the haters this one thing. This is the one thing I'll give haters. I never should have allowed my brother to speak in that last scene when he was possessed by Jason. That was a cheat. It was bullshit. It was lazy screenwriting. And I do not put that on Dean Laurie. I put that on myself. I'll take all of the blame for that. That's the one, my bad, and I own it. The rest of the complaints, okay, all right. Go buy another copy of my movie and keep complaining. It's fine. Everybody who hates Jason Goes to Hell owns at least 4 copies of it. Every single person who hates it.
When Jason Goes to Hell came out, I saw it in the drive-in.
Love it.
I have fond memories.
I love that, man.
Yeah.
Did you say fond or fondle?
Fondle memories.
Fondle memories.
On the drive-in?
Yeah.
Hey, it's the drive-in, baby.
Yes.
Come on.
Yes. I don't know if there are any drive-ins left.
There are.
There's a couple. Yeah. There's one close to us, actually.
We're going to have to hit up the drive-in.
Yeah, we should. We should.
Wow.
Adam, I got a filmmaker, director, writer question for you. What's your dream project? If you were given the money, given the people to work with, kind of a free ticket, free ride, you get to make this film. What is that film?
I have a movie that was I was working with many years ago. I was working with Kevin Spacey. Not trying to brag. I was working with Kevin and his production company. This is when Kevin had just made 21 and he was doing like a lot of production. He was really killing it. And I had this film called Rage that I had written for Haley Joel Osment when Haley was a teenager. It is the only film that Haley Joel had ever been attached to without money being involved. It's the only time he had signed on to a movie. The movie is semi-autobiographical about my childhood growing up in Connecticut. And it's about a little boy who has a photographic memory. And he's kind of a world eater, and he's this really sweet but very, very smart kid. And at 11 years old, his best friend in the world, this little girl, Rachel, who is like his sidekick, they're always together riding bikes, always. He finds the raped, murdered body of this little girl at 11. And the image of this stays with him, is embedded in his gray matter, in only the way someone who has, and again, photographic memory is usually about text. It's usually text-based. It's not image-based. But there are cases when images will burn in for someone who has that kind of memory, and it becomes a sort of a reoccurring obsessive thought. And so this kid, we see him at the site witnessing this, and we dissolve to his eyes at 16. And he sees this same image. What we realize is he's drawn this image photographically. It's a perfect replica of the image that he saw that day. And he's still doing this over and over and over again. And this kid is like a ghost. He doesn't get good grades in school because he never participates. He's a genius, but he has no friends. He's terrified of the world. He lives inside of a small crawl space on the side of his bedroom that is covered in nothing but crime scene statistics and maps of different murder areas and everything else. And this kid has ingested everything there is to know about criminal procedure and about crimes. And another murder happens, and it's the same killer. It's the same thing. And no one has ever caught this guy. And this kid decides that the only way this is going to get solved is if he goes and solves it. And now this kid who is terrified of the world now has to go out in the world and catch a serial killer. So that was the movie that I'd written for Haley. Haley signed on. Kevin was playing this detective who becomes kind of a father figure to this kid because the kid's whole life, his family life is broken up. This is in the late 70s, early 80s. So it's when everybody's parents got divorced. It's when, we all became the latchkey generation, all that stuff. And this kid is the anger that's building him and building in him and building in him is ready to bust loose. And in the meantime, there's a girl who's one of the most popular girls in school who's always had a crush on this kid. And they fall in love during this whole kind of adventure. And the killer, knowing that this kid is getting close to him, targets that girl. And now it's all about him stopping that killer before he gets to this girl that he's fallen madly in love with. So that's Rage. During the pandemic, my wife and I, who's my writing partner, my brilliant, extraordinary, beautiful wife, who is the lead of Secret Santa, my last movie, but she's also every scream, every gasp. She did a bunch of ADR for a bunch of different actors in Jason Goes to Hell because we met when I was doing post on Jason Goes to Hell, and Sean didn't want to pay for the actors to come in, so he asked Deb if she would just do it. So she did. Anyway, Deborah and I, during the pandemic, we wrote the first full season of what we've turned Rage into a TV series called Mosaic. And the first 10 episodes are written. We're actually dealing with a couple of things right now on this show right now. But that show, because movies have morphed now into these 10-hour movies that we all get and binge, that movie has become this show, and it is my dream. It's the thing that I am closest to, and it's a cross between every great wish fulfillment movie of the 80s meets Seven meets True Detective. So
that's awesome.
So that's Mosaic.
I like that. That's cool. I also get have you seen 1984?
I have.
I got a little bit of
there's
a
little
bit of that
absolutely
in there too.
Absolutely.
With
Yeah.
Kids,
yeah, definitely. It's not quite so what's the right word for it? It's not so kids on bikes friendly. It's a darker tapestry than that, but yes, that's definitely in the same genre, without a doubt. Yeah.
That's awesome. Your dream project, you essentially actually get to make it.
That's what I'm doing that is what I'm working towards right now.
That's something that I would venture a guess in the 90th percentile that 90% of filmmakers don't actually get to ever do. It's their absolute dream project. So that's
Thanks,
awesome, man.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Look, I don't know. I know Royce has seen it, but I don't know if you guys have seen Secret Santa, which was the last feature I directed. And that movie, that is also way too autobiographical. My God, way too much. But
It's the best Christmas movie since Bob Clark's Christmas Story.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you. It's
I have
definitely
not
bloodier
seen
than that
Secret
movie.
Santa, but I'm gonna go home and fucking watch it
Oh,
now,
cool.
though,
Yeah.
because
Oh, cool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you guys should check it out. It's here's the thing. It is it's a Christmas haramedy. And it is a collection of the worst people you could ever see on screen. Just terrible, terrible, horrible human beings, who all sort of deserve to die. And again, way too much like my growing up. It's funny first. Bob Kurtzman came in to do all the effects for me, and Bob actually shot second camera for me. So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
so we were side by side on this thing the whole time.
Your brother has the little cameo in the film.
He does. A very little cameo. Well done. Well played, sir. The cast is the best cast I've ever worked with. Like, they are all freaking extraordinary actors. And they all come out of my troupe. I've got a troupe in LA of about 60 actors, and these people were all in that. My wife is one of the leads in the movie, and she's won a ton of awards around the world for the movie because she's really extraordinary in it. But it is what would happen if you finally got to say what you want to say to your family at Christmas, and then what if you got to do what you wanted to do to them? That's how that goes. So it is bloody. It is really bloody. But it's also, there was one review that we got that was my favorite that said, the movie is far less violent when people pick up knives and stop talking. And I was like, good.
Well, I would consider that a definite win.
I love that.
From what it sounds
love that.
like. Yeah. I am familiar with the Drew Lynch special that you did, and I didn't realize he was in this also. I'm actually a big fan of Drew Lynch. I'm really picky with comedians, but I've been following him for quite some time.
Drew.
So that's I'm sure that's a blast.
Well,
working with
Drew
him.
bypassed going to college and he moved to LA instead to start acting, and he joined my class. He was one of my actors, and this is before he had the stutter, and then he had the accident that created the stutter, and his agent left him, his manager, everybody dumped him. And I went, I will stand by you for the rest of your life, dude. Like, I'm not going anywhere. I believe in you. I think your talent is extraordinary. This is before he was a comic. This is just when he was an actor. And he started workshopping his comedy in my acting class. And so all of his comedy kind of came through our group. And our whole group would go see him every time he performed in LA. So he would be in contests and stuff. So we'd all be voting for him. So he would win all these things. And then he got the America's Got Talent audition. So came out of all of that stuff. And I wrote the part in Secret Santa for Drew. It's a stuttering character. He has a monologue in the dead center of the movie, 46 minutes in the movie. He has a ranting monologue that in every country that we've played the movie around the world, and we've played all over the world at festivals, no matter what language the movie's in, that moment gets an applause break every single time, every single country. So yeah,
That's
he's
awesome.
amazing in the movie. And then 6 months after we did Secret Santa, I shot Did I Stutter, his first comedy special. I directed that for him and produced it. Yeah, no, he's amazing.
He's come an extensive way with his
yeah.
stuttering. I remember first discovering him when it was, I mean, obviously it was part of his gig, too, with his comedy. But like, I remember first just, finding him online and started watching this stuff till newer stuff now. It's almost non-existent
gone.
now.
Almost gone.
That's really excellent for him too, that he's managed to come through all that stuff. But yeah, that's awesome. I didn't unfortunately I didn't know a lot of your other work, but like I'm glad I do now, because now I got more new shit.
I'll tell you,
because just like Tom Savini says, it's new if you haven't seen it.
He's 100% right. He's 100%. Stephen Colbert had one of his first movie roles with me. In my movie Let It Snow, which was our big Sundance hit. So no, I
know that movie. Why am I such a jackass?
Missy Pyle started in that movie. Henry Simmons started in that movie. Like I'm good with actors. I love my actors. Definitely my thing. It's funny. I'm known for horror more than anything else, but comedy is where I win festivals and win awards. That's always the thing that does nicely for me on that side of it.
Do you outside of, obviously you have to answer, Friday franchise, but do you have another favorite horror franchise outside of the Friday franchise
God, yeah.
that is like kind of the tops for you?
Well, franchises are interesting. Because look, my thing with franchise movies, my love of all that stuff is waning only because I think it's killing a lot of creativity. I don't think it's actually bolstering creativity anymore. The thing that I love, look, if you look at any of the big franchises, the best, right? Texas Chainsaw, Friday, Nightmare, Halloween, the first movie and the second movie, usually the first two, but always the first, are actually scary movies. They are horror movies. They are flat out scary. By the third movie, the villain has become the hero, and the audience is cheering for them to murder the dumb teenagers that are written around them. Well, that's not a horror movie anymore. Like, we're not doing horror anymore. So everybody who loves to call themselves horror fans and they want to go on and on about Friday 5 and Halloween 6, I go, well, yeah, great. They're not scary anymore. By the way, that was also what I was trying to do with Jason Goes to Hell, was make the villain again and give us heroes that you would give a shit when they died. Right? So I didn't want to just make bumbling morons. I wanted to give them character, And by the way, to Tommy McLaughlin's credit, I think that's what he did with Part 6. I think he was really trying. And it's why, the character of Tommy in that movie is so beloved, because he is a real hero. Like, he is actually fighting against the shark, Nobody goes to the movie Jaws and roots for the shark. Nobody.
No.
No.
Well, except for my daughter.
Well, that's fair.
My daughter was, from an early age, she was obsessed with Jaws. I don't know why, and it brought her joy. It could have been
Baby Shark.
Watch the attack scene.
Could have been Baby Shark. Look, I was very proud to work on the Texas Chainsaw franchise. Like, that was something I was really excited to do. Deb and I wrote a Cabin Fever movie that never got made. It was the same people who made Cabin Fever Patient Zero, I think it was called, the Sean Astin one. So our movie was supposed to shoot before that, but because ours was more ambitious, it was taking longer to do. So they wanted to shoot these movies in the Dominican Republic, and I smelled a rat. I was like, okay, guys, like, they were telling me we're going to have to ship all the equipment in and everything. I was like, So they were asking me, they wanted me to direct the movie. And I was like, no, I'm good. I don't really want to direct it. And they were like, no, but we really want you to direct it. And they would not leave me alone about directing the movie because they loved the script. And the script was a cross between Lucio Fulci's Zombie and David Cronenberg's They Came From Within. Okay? So all Deborah and I had to adhere to in writing this movie was it had to have one connective thread to the original film. They didn't care if it had nothing else to do with it. So I was like, look, I love the idea of this flesh-eating virus, but I think it's more interesting if it's not just a sexually transmitted virus, but if it ultra-sexualizes the host. So if that person becomes ravenous sexually, that's scary and that's interesting. So they let me do that. Like, they were like, go for it. Right. So these guys are begging me to direct this movie. And I'm like, I just don't want to go to the Dominican Republic and make this movie. So I said to my agent, who's a marvelous woman, who looked like a soccer mom. And truly, she had Freddie's glove dangling above her head over her desk at her office. Okay. And literally looked like, like a soccer mom. And so I said to her, I said, look, I'm going to write a director's sort of, my vision, right, for them. I'm going to write them a letter of my vision. I said, either they are going to immediately stop bothering me about directing this movie, or I am going to get to make a movie the likes of which that has never been seen. So either way, I'm cool. So I wrote to them and I said, look, guys, I said, you know how overtly sexual the movie is. And I'm really excited to make that movie. Because of that, these 4 characters will have to be portrayed by adult film actors. because I will actually need them to perform sex acts in the film. My agent loved this. My agent was like, okay, I am just hoping they make you make this movie. I was like, great. I'm cool with that. That's great. I said, they're never going to let me. I never got bothered by them again. I knew it.
Wow.
But again, much like when Brian De Palma made Body Double, he wanted to make the first studio-made pornographic feature film. And I was like, hey, man, we're a horror movie. Let's do it. Like, let's go for it. You know? So, much like, Wes Craven hiring F.J. Lincoln for Last House on the Left, this was a chance to do something that had never, that really had not been done, because it was going to be sexually explicit. And again, they could have released an R-rated version, but there would be a wonderful, behind the curtain in your video store version of the movie that you'd have to go find, which I thought was just a cool idea.
Yep.
I read that Brian De Palma, when he did Body Double, but also William Friedkin when he did Cruising.
Mm-hmm.
I remember hearing that during the scenes where they went into the Leather Daddy bar,
Yep,
they're really fucking each other bar.
They sure are.
The camera doesn't see the nudity, but they're really doing the stuff. That's kind of interesting to know that, that's not fake.
Nope. No, it's not. That you need a hell of a focus puller when you're making a movie like that.
We did a previous video for the channel. We did a top 10 list of we each did a top 10 of movies that we think should be remade, in kind of vaguely in the horror genre. And one of my picks was actually Cruising. Yeah. Because I think it would be really cool to do it, and you can do it modern day or you can set it back then. But it's just crazy to me that with Friedkin that movie just never seemed to get the love I thought.
Dude, I think that movie is, and I agree with you. I think that movie is flat out a horror movie. I think that is a terrifying film.
Yes,
really scary.
Yes,
and also when you consider that one of the two serial killers that the movie is based on is the lab tech in The Exorcist.
Yes,
that is so chilling. That is such a remarkable, what a calling that movie was for Friedkin. Look, I think William Friedkin's one of those guys that even though he won Best Director, one of the youngest ones to ever do that. But also, he was lauded. But man, talk about a guy who did not get his due in the last 40 years of his life. Really remarkable. I mean, I just rewatched Killer Joe a few weeks ago with my wife, and I love that movie. And I was like, there is just nobody with this guy's balls.
Yeah.
So Adam, as the director,
can we talk Sorcerer?
What do you think about the fact that so a streaming service can do pretty much whatever they want to the movie? You put a movie like The French Connection on a streaming service, and they decide that they want Popeye Doyle to be likable. So all the racist rhetoric and violence and anything they don't like, they can remove it. What do you think about the fact that the artist's film isn't safe? After all that time, they can do what they want to it.
I think it's monstrous. I think there's nothing. There's nothing worse. Look, I am against the banning of all books. I am against the banning of any films. I am against the banning of any piece of material out there. Look, yes, I don't want kids to read pornography. Of course not. Nobody does, for God's sakes. But let's be honest. I mean, kids have smartphones. So kids are looking at porn anytime they want. And any parent thinks they're protecting their kid from that and gives their kid a smartphone is a fool. Your kid's looking at that stuff. That's what's happening. I think that this idea that we're protecting children from knowledge is bullshit. I think it's puritanical. I think it's a dumbing down of our culture. I am for everybody having the exact same rights as every other human being. That's it. I don't care who the fuck you are. You get the same rights. Mm-hmm. For me, I think every human being has the right to pick up any book they want to pick up. I think that filmmakers should band together and call for boycotts on any streaming service that does just what you're talking about, Royce. You have parental controls on streaming services, use them. You don't want your kids seeing something, that's fine. But this idea of canceling anything, look, I tried to rewatch a Bill Cosby thing a couple years ago, right? And as a kid, I was a huge fan. We were all raised by Bill Cosby. I mean, the Cosby Show, he was America's dad for a long time. I went to watch this comedy special, and it was one of my favorites as a kid, and I just didn't find it funny. Okay, that's fair. It doesn't mean I don't want that available to people. Like, you watch the Cosby Show now, and you cringe a lot. Got it. Harvey Weinstein, you can't dig a deep enough trench to throw that motherfucker in. That's it. Fuck that guy. Okay?
Amen.
However,
Damn.
he made an ungodly number of great films. I don't want those canceled. I don't want those taken away from people. I want people to still be able to experience all of that, all the other artists' work. This idea that we're going to take everybody's viewing away because one person offends us. And look, when it comes to content, okay. So I am a very liberal guy. I'm sure you're already getting that. I'm a liberal. Okay. That's where I stand. Nothing drives me more crazy than when liberals create an atmosphere that actually makes us the bad guy. This idea of not letting people have access to things like Blazing Saddles, stop. Look, by the way,
movie's a masterpiece. It's hilarious.
But by the way, listen, I come at it from both angles, okay? I hate the movie Inglourious Bastards. I fucking hate that movie. And I'll tell you why I hate that movie. Anyone under 30 doesn't know what the fuck Schindler's List is anymore. But they know Inglourious Bastards, and they think the Jews were the aggressors in World War II and that Hitler was a Looney Tune. No! Like, what? No! That's crazy. So, for me, there is this sort of... I have a good buddy, a guy named John Esposito. John wrote Stephen King's Graveyard Shift. He won the Writers Guild Award twice for The Walking Dead. He has an amazing resume. The guy's brilliant. He directed a few of the latest season of Creepshow. He's written every season of Creepshow. He's written several episodes. He's just a brilliant guy, right? This guy hates Once Upon a Time in Hollywood so much. Like, he's so angry about that movie because for him, the Tate murders were this sacrosanct thing. And he's like, wait a minute, you're rewriting that? What? Now, by the way, even though I hate the movie, and I don't hate Hollywood, I think that's a fun movie. And again, he does announce Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, so he tells you this is a fairy tale, enjoy. But even though I hate Inglourious Bastards, I want everybody to have access to that movie. I want everybody to be able to watch that movie. Make up your own minds. But I want them to be able to see Schindler's List. And I sit there and go, how quickly could that get canceled? By somebody who goes, oh, the Holocaust didn't happen. No, it did. And this is the greatest document ever shot of that experience. And so
Yes.
Royce, I am for filmmakers' work being protected like it is the Mona Lisa. By the way, I'm including things like Police Academy or Revenge of the Nerds, which is the most cancelable movie ever made. Right? There is literally, they make fun of a guy raping a girl. He rapes a girl. It happens. And she falls for him because he's really good at mouth stuff. But you know what? I want people to see it.
What's crazy is one point in time that was just
completely acceptable behavior. No problem.
Like,
But I don't want anyone to cancel it.
I do have a follow-up question, Adam, and then I'll pass over to Randy.
Sure.
So, as a filmmaker, I mean, Randy's a director and
Awesome.
A filmmaker. Adam is. I've done that.
Yep.
So, I became aware of this term that maybe you can clarify this for me, especially because you are a big papa to an acting troupe, and these are all your babies. The person's comfort level is paramount on a set. Let's
Oh,
say
yeah.
that up front so that
Yes.
nothing after that is okay. An actress reads a script.
Yes.
They see in the script the story is all about the violence, the
Mm-hmm.
story is all about the sexual content. It's all these things are part of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say that they decide to do the role and they do all these other scenes and they get to the day of shooting and they decide they have a moral conscience and they just don't want to do anything that's in this scene,
Okay.
and they completely hijack the film because they're like, yeah, I can't do it and I don't want it done. I just they have the right to now change your film because
Mm-hmm.
they won't do the stuff. So there's that. I also heard that a person can have into perpetuity something called constant consent. After making the movie and after the movie is released, they can decide they no longer want themselves in the film, and they can push to have themselves removed from it.
No. No, they can't. No, they can't. There's no contract in the world that would allow for it. You would never get a contract passed with that. So that is now the first thing you said is true. By the way, I have never seen an actor say I'm not going to do an act of violence in a movie. Like I've never seen that happen. I have had actors agree to do nudity and on the day say no. And it's awful. And it fucks you. It totally
Can you
does.
use a body double without their consent?
No, you cannot. You cannot. That is a SAG rule. You have to have their consent to a body double.
Okay.
Because I offered a body double and she rejected it. So now, do I think that actors should retain that right? Yes. Do I think that an actor who does that is going to regret the choice of taking that role in the beginning? Yes. Because here's the problem. Directors get phone calls from other directors when they're going to hire an actor. And they say, hey, what was it like working with them? How were they? And in the great words of Steven Spielberg, Dee Wallace is great. Great actress. She's a terrific actress. A little difficult. That's it. I hear little difficult. I hear that word or I say that word. We don't hire that person that fast. So it is what happens. It is, look, if you don't want to do nudity, don't take the role. Like, just don't take the role. I have actors that I work with that I love. And by the way, like men and women, both beautiful people, gorgeous actors, who have flat out said, I don't do nudity. I won't do it. I had one young woman who turned down a role in a career-changing movie because she wouldn't do nudity. And you know what? I stand beside her the whole time and go, that is your choice. That is 100% your choice. I get it. With dudes, somehow I can never seem to keep their damn clothes on them. Like they're so ready to get naked. It's like stupid. I'm like, dude, put the llama away. We're good. We're not ready yet, dude. Thanks.
Shouldn't they shoot those scenes early in the schedule? That way, if you have to replace the actor, you
I
can.
shoot them day one. I shoot day one. All my nudity happens on the first day of shooting. That's it.
And can you replace the actor, or will you be
Immediately.
sued? Will you be sued for saying
Nope. That is a creative difference. That's creative differences, and that is in every contract. Absolutely. Yeah. And again, look, don't take the role. You don't want to do the scenes. I respect you 100%. And by the way, if I love an actor so much that I go, you know what, I can give up the nudity in this scene. I don't need it. It's superfluous. Look, by the way, I'm not for superfluous nudity as a rule. Like, I think it actually should have some story content to it. There should be a reason. In the same way, I mean, guys, are we all really tired of watching every love scene that's being shot right now? Like every love scene, somebody's wearing a shirt. Why is everybody wearing a shirt? I don't wear a shirt when I have sex. What is that? Like, what is that?
Yes.
Full bra, panties, shirt. Then the panties come off, but the shirt's long enough that you don't see anything. What? Like, where are these folks having sex? On what planet is this happening?
No, I don't.
Planet no nudity. You know, planet never nude. You know,
Right.
It's a little nuts. It's a little, and again, listen, I'm for everybody doing what they feel comfortable with. But if you read the script and go, oh, there's a lot of nudity in this, I can't do this. God bless. We'll work together on something else.
Yeah.
Awesome. Please do.
So, I mean, you don't have to tell us anything that you don't want to,
go
obviously. But it's a documentary coming out. Just give us an overview, and then of course any of our viewers that go to view this, that way they can kind of get the lowdown on what that is, and maybe something to look forward to.
Love
for,
it.
Fans.
No, I love it. We're actually going to be making a couple of announcements tomorrow about it, just about stuff that's going on with the film.
Nice.
But we've just wrapped up the doc. It's done. The film is finished. We just finished our color timing and our sound mix, so that's all completed. The movie is just under 2 hours long. It's really fun, and I mean that like with a big F. It's much more heartfelt and comedic than I thought a movie about this would be. So I'm thrilled about that. Michael Felsher ended up directing the movie, and he's just a master of what he does. My best friend since I was 14 years old, a guy named Eric Beatner, who was just at the Emmys last night. He got nominated for Best Editor for The Amazing Race for the 8th time in a row. He edited the film and did a masterful job of cutting this movie. And there's also 2 hours of bonus footage and material on the Blu-ray that's coming out. So the movie is really badass. We are in the middle of several deals on this freaking thing. It's taken 5 years to make it. But it's done,
Wow.
and we are going to be announcing soon, not just yet, but soon, when and where the premiere is going to be. And it's a really cool thing that we're working on. We got like, I think we have 45 interviews on the picture, all original cast and crew, and then a bunch of people who worked at the studio, and then other people who have ancillary, ties to this. We asked Sean Cunningham to be involved. We asked him 3 times. He never returned our calls, so that's cool. He is in the movie, whether he likes it or not, because I did have people shooting him at conventions while he was on stage, saying a lot of shit. So it is a warts and all documentary, but ultimately it is about the love of filmmaking, the love of genre, and more importantly, it's about how you make a movie with people for a couple of months, and somehow 30 years later, they're still your family, which is crazy. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. Yeah. So,
and that's amazing. And I think I'm not excluding any other genres in filmmaking, but there's something special about the horror genre that adds all these extra layers to making a family with who you're making a film with. What experiences you are pouring into it, what comes out of it, and then also just the documentary itself. The horror genre seems to be one of the best places for the behind the scenes type of footage. There's a massive need and want for all of that behind the scenes stuff. Royce was just talking earlier about how much we were talking about, like Scream Factory and other niche, smaller ones that release, special edition stuff, and the horror genre. And I myself, and it sounds like Royce too, would just love all the behind the scenes. Give us all the special features you can absolutely muster. And if there's a whole film of special features, basically like we're getting with this here, people are going to eat it up.
It's 4 hours of material on Jason Goes Down. It's insane. I will say,
that's awesome.
Back then, Sean did not pay for, or New Line didn't pay for a behind the scenes, documentary to be made. There was no PTS on that film. So there was nobody shooting. That we had a great set photographer who took great pictures, but that was it. And so when we went to go make this movie, my editor was like, Adam, what am I going to cut together? It's just going to be talking heads the whole movie, and and then shots from the movie. And I was talking to Bob Kurtzman about this, and he was like, I got BTS. I was like, what? On what? He goes, on your movie. I was like, you what? He said, Adam, we have like 8 hours of behind the scenes footage from Jason Goes to Hell. We were shooting the whole time on our handy cams. I was like, nice. You're freaking kidding me. And he delivered all of that to me, and I paid him $1. And he gave me 8 hours of footage to see myself at 23 directing my first feature film is hilarious. So yeah, it's a pretty cool. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. The movie's badass. It's really fun. And we also have a lot of fans that give testimonials. We have people who hated the movie who talk in the movie. I mean, I know what Jason Goes to Hell is, and I know what it is for the fandom. And what I love about the movie is that it is the most divisive movie of the franchise. It's why people keep talking about it.
I got a question about the doc real quick.
Okay, because this has to be the last question because I got a writing meeting tonight. Yeah, please.
Well, first off, thank you for including my testimonial in it. That was
damn
really
Skippy, dude.
The question was, you said there were people that did not want to be interviewed, so you couldn't get Sean. But you said Dean Lorey, Bob Shea, and Mike DeLuca. What about them?
Nope. Bob Shea is not well. He's been ill for a long time, actually. So that's not a place we could go at all. Dean Lorey, Dean and I were best friends for a long time. We lived together for years. And I love Dean. Dean's an amazing guy, very sweet. Once Dean became a family man, he put all things horror in his rear view and sped away from it as fast as he could. So he does not talk about Jason Goes. He doesn't talk about any of the stuff that he did prior to Major Pain, and that's when he'll start talking. But he's a comedy guy now, and he had kids and suddenly didn't want to be a part of the horror genre, which I respect. I get it. That's where your head goes. That's where your head goes.
And DeLuca?
No, but Mark Ordesky is we got an incredible interview with Mark, and he's pretty brilliant in it. And look, getting the guy who created the Lord of the Rings franchise with New Line, yeah, I'm good with that. I'm good with that dude.
Oh yeah,
good with that.
Oh
dude.
Yeah,
and he's just such a sweetheart. He's just such a good man. So yeah,
awesome.
And casting wise, we got so much of the cast, it's berserk. John D. LeMay, who's never talked about this movie. Allison Smith, who has never talked about the movie. Michelle Clooney, who'd never talked about the film. I mean, it's unbelievable the number of people who came out to talk to us. It's amazing.
I was amazed that John D. LeMay did the Crystal Lake Memories doc.
I was too.
10 years ago.
I was too, and so was he. And it took a lot of convincing to get him to come back around and do something else. None of us were all that thrilled with the Crystal Lake Memories doc. Not so much. They never interviewed me for that documentary, by the way. They used footage from His Name Was Jason. They never interviewed me for new footage. They just recycled old shit.
It does feel like a hodgepodge, doesn't it?
It is a hodgepodge. And this movie does not have footage from anybody else's movies. This is all originally shot material that took 3.5 years just to amass the material. And then to comb through 200 hours of footage was crazy. Making docs is not for the weak, that's for sure.
But it's worthwhile. Yeah. So worthwhile.
Get the best editor you can possibly find, because that's what it's all about. You find the movie in the cut. That's where it lies.
Yes.
Awesome, guy.
Dude, Adam, thank you so much for joining us.
My absolute pleasure.
I know you got to get going.
Yeah.
It was a blast to have you on. We really appreciate it. Yes. Congratulations on the documentary up and coming. That's so awesome you got to do that. And as a fan of the franchise and everything, I thank you for your time spent, and thank you for the art you've given us in the filmmaking industry. So really, really appreciate it, man.
Are you taking any more Indiegogo donations from people to help with the festival circuits and any other stuff?
Yep. The Indiegogo is still up. They put us on In Demand, and we've been there the whole time.
Fans, come out and support that for filmmaking and Adam Marcus and Friday the 13th. Give what you can, because it feeds itself back into the fan base.
Sure does.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can throw a link to that in this video. Absolutely.
Love it, guys. That's awesome. Appreciate it. You guys are amazing.
Absolutely.
Great hanging with you.
Hey, thanks for coming on, brother.
You got it. My pleasure.
Thank you.
Good night, guys.
Take care, man. Thank you so much.
I want to thank Royce Freeman.
Yes, absolutely.
Friend of mine, for coming on. Appreciate you, brother.
Yes, Royce. Thanks so much for
Oh
joining
yeah,
us,
I'd love
man.
to
It
do
was
this
awesome.
again. Ask my wife. I love to talk.
I think it's time we
So-
want to thank Royce and everybody else previously that was
Yes,
on here with us,
yes.
Harry and Adam.
Harry and Adam.
For
Happy
those of you
Friday
who
the
tuned in to watch,
13th.
yes.
Yes.
Happy Friday the 13th to everybody. And as
Yes.
always, thanks for joining us here on Corn on the Macabre. And hopefully we'll be having Royce join us again sometime soon.
Yes.
For sure.
Like, share, and subscribe.
Yeah,
or
that's
John
right.
or John Holmes that like button. As
we always say. All right. We'll catch you guys next time.
Yeah.
Royce, thank you, man. Have a good
All right.
night.
We're out of here.